All right. There we go. Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome. You can think of this like our virtual notary training meetup. So if you can put your name and what county you're in the comments so that I know, and just say hi if you have any questions, and we'll talk about those as we go along. Welcome, welcome. Just wait a few more minutes before we get started. Hello, hello, everybody. So, some of you may know me. If you don't know me, my name is Nicole Bob. I am the founder of Notary Training Network, where I provide notary training and mentoring services throughout the state of Maryland. So, at some point in time, hopefully, I'll get a chance to actually meet some of you in person once we're able to start having in person events again. I am in the process of planning events for next year. Networking was a big thing that notaries wanted to do. So if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, or ideas on that, definitely put those down in the comments as well. So we can make something happen. I see Deshauna's in here. Hey, Deshauna. She set up something for notaries to network in Virginia. So maybe we can do something. I don't know how many of you like to travel, but I'm open to traveling to Virginia to have a big notary event for networking. That's something that would be interesting. Hello, hello. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, just a couple more minutes before we get started. Waiting for some people to come in. Anne Arundel County, Hartford County. Some of you are commissioned in Maryland and Virginia. That's cool. I personally won't be driving around in Virginia, so I'm not looking forward to being a duly commissioned notary, but that's good if you can get that. Montgomery County, hey. Frederick County's in here. Okay. Howard County, PG County, Baltimore's in the house, Charles County. Welcome, everybody. Hello. All right, one more minute and then we'll go ahead and get started. Prince George's County, hey. I actually used to live in Prince George's County. I don't know how long I've been in Prince George's County, but I've been in Baltimore for 10 years, so I did used to be a PG County. I wasn't a notary in PG County, but I did elementary and high school in PG County. Yes, 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 definitely. St. Mary's County, nice. All right. So again, welcome everybody. I hope you have your pens, papers, notepads out. I hope tonight is very informative in regards to the law changes for Maryland notaries. Again, my name is Nicole Bob. I am the founder of Notary Training Network. So if you would like to connect with me, you can join my email list. You can get in contact with me either through a message here on Facebook on the Notary Training Network page, or you can go through the website, www.notarytrainingnetwork.org. You can schedule a one-on-one session with me if you're looking for a mentor, if you're getting started as a notary. Also, if you want to register for one of the upcoming workshops. I do have a new workshop that's launching for Notary Public Day, November 7th. If you don't know, notaries, we do have a national day. So if you're interested in getting started as a mobile notary, look forward to register for that workshop. It's not covering anything notary related. Well, it might have a little bit of notary related stuff in there, but that's going to be all business related for getting yourself set up as a mobile notary. Now, full disclosure, I do not focus on training for TIPICs. I do incorporate it because I am a TIPIC. If you don't know what TIPIC means, TIPIC is title insurance producer independent contractor. That's the license that you need to have if you are going to be doing real estate closings as a notary signing agent in the state of Maryland. So I don't offer training on that yet, but if you are interested in becoming one, I can definitely help you with the tools and resources you need to get you started on that path. All right, so getting started, we have some major changes that are coming about for Maryland notaries. Our law changes just went into effect on October 1st. So if you are duly commissioned in Maryland and also another state, the first thing that's very important is to make sure you know how to separate your rules and regulations as it pertains to that state. So the one big thing with notaries that are commissioned in Maryland and DC and also Virginia, travel fees are regulated. So if you're a notary in Maryland, you can charge the federal IRS regulated mileage, which right now is 57.5 cents per mile, plus a $5 flat rate. So that's what you would charge to travel from point A to point B. And then, of course, your $4 per notarization. However, if you're a notary in Virginia or if you're a notary in DC, your travel fees are not regulated. So you can charge something that's reasonable for your travel fees. So that's one thing that you want to make sure you don't mix up, because notaries are getting reported for overstating and overcharging fees in the state of Maryland. It's a big thing right now with COVID. Some notaries are charging upwards of $100 to do basic, regular, simple, general notary work. And that is, I'm not talking about loan signing agent work. I'm talking about just somebody's calling you up to get a power of attorney notarized, or maybe a handwritten letter or something that they need notarized, something that's not loan related. That's illegal in the state of Maryland. If you get caught doing that and somebody reports you to the Secretary of State, it's possible you can lose your notary commission. So just make sure you're compliant and you're charging the correct fees. All right, so going forward, what can you do as a notary? Under the new regulations, the big part of it is incorporating remote online notarizations for Maryland notaries. So you can still do traditional notarizations. A lot of places are not set up to do the remote online notarizations just yet. So don't think, if you're not interested in getting started as a remote online notary right at this moment, don't think you're missing anything, because a lot of places still have to catch up to be able to have the platforms and the software and the tools and the resources needed to do it. So if you want to go down that path, that's absolutely great and wonderful. Make sure you do your research on it. We're going to have 2 more sessions talking about how you can get started with remote online notarizations as a remote online notary in the next coming weeks. So make sure you check the calendar on the Notary Training Network Facebook page to see when those events are scheduled. I did just post the schedule for that as well. So make sure you follow those events. So what you can do as a notary, this applies to both traditional notarizations and also remote online notarizations. You can take an oath, acknowledgement, or affirmation. Now, an oath and an affirmation is the same thing. Those terms are just used interchangeably, depending on the language and how the document is prepared together. It's the same thing. The only difference between an oath and an acknowledgement is that you have to do a verbal a verbal ceremony. So that's the big thing that you have to remember if you're out doing notarizations and you see the wording. If you come to my workshop, we get more in depth with it. I give you keywords and stuff that you need to look for. But the big thing that you need to remember is whenever you're doing a notarial act and it asks you to give an oath, you have to do a verbal ceremony. Part of the new law, if you forget and you don't do it correct, and God forbid, whatever reason, that notarization that you completed, hopefully you logged it in your journal correctly so that you can remember actually doing it and you have a record of it. Somebody tries to say that you did not perform your notarial act correctly, it doesn't count against you as far as getting in any serious trouble as a notary with the state. However, that party that you completed that notarization for may possibly attempt to take legal action against you. That's why it's very important to record everything in your journal properly. And also, if your journal gives you space to make notes, sometimes you would need to make notes if you have multiple names on a document that needs to be signed and everybody's not there to sign it. So you want to document who wasn't there to sign and put that in your journal. Or you may have a situation where two people were supposed to sign, and only one person came to sign because the other party already signed whatever they needed to sign to get that particular document notarized. So those are the little details that's important that you want to make sure you have included in your notes section so that you can remember, because I might be young, but I don't remember what I did yesterday just because I do so much. So don't ever go off of memory. If you don't have space in your journal to put notes, that's perfectly fine. If you want to go down to the next line item and make the note there, or if you write small, you want to squeeze it in some space. If they have a thumbprint box and you want to put it there, just something so that you remember something that happened in that particular transaction. So if it stands out as something out of the ordinary, that's a way that you have a record of it. You can witness and attest to a signature. You can certify a tangible copy of an electronic record. Why this is important is because now journal records are required for 10 years. That's standard with most states that are doing remote online notarizations. Some states have record keeping requirements for 5 years. But whatever service provider you decide to use, if you're going to be doing remote online notarizations, you want to find out before you register and make the investment to use that platform what type of record keeping they provide, because some of them only keep the records of the audiovisual recording for, let's say, 90 days or 30 days. And then you are responsible for taking those records and transferring it either to your computer or a flash drive, whatever you decide to use. If you want to use the cloud and store it that way. But you have to, if you're not used to keeping records now, you have to get used to keeping records. So if you have to create a separate file folder, or, if you want to label your specific recordings a certain way so that you know, maybe you keep it by month, or maybe you keep it by the last letter of the last name. Whatever system works for you, make a system, learn it, memorize it, and just keep using it so you're consistent, so that you know how to keep your records. So if anybody ever asks you to pull any records for any of the recordings that you did for a remote transaction, you have that to provide. The big part of it that was supposed to go into effect this year that is getting pushed back to next year is the education mandate. So as of October 1st, 2021, notaries will be required to take a course and also pass an exam. This applies to if you're going to be applying as a notary for the first time, and also if you need to renew your notary commission. So if you already have your commission and it's not expiring, you don't have anything to worry about until after 2021. Then you will be required to take an exam and also show proof that you took a course to be able to get your notary commission renewed. This is especially important if you're going to be providing typic services as a title producer, because you may or may not know the Secretary of State has absolutely nothing to do with getting your title producer's license. So if you're reaching out to the Secretary of State to find out how to become a notary signing agent, you're not going to get much help, just because that's not something that they deal with. You have to have your notary commission in order to get your license as a typic. The only other way to get it is if you're going to be working with a title company directly and you don't have to be a notary. The typic or title producer's license is managed by the Maryland Insurance Administration. So any questions that you have in regards to becoming a title producer in Maryland so that you can get your license to do real estate closings as a notary, you would direct those questions to the Secretary of State. You would direct those questions to the Maryland Insurance Administration. And they do have under producer licensing, That's the section that you would go to get the contact information if you have any questions that you need answered. Now, if you have something for specific questions as it relates to a package that you're doing after you get your title producer's license, they probably won't help you. They'll probably refer you back to whoever you did your training course with to get additional resources and get additional help. A lot of the course providers do provide additional training if you feel as though that's something that you need. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't focus on training typics right now. I only focus on training you to be a notary. There's so many resources out there that shows you how to get training for loan documents. So just make sure you do your research, find something that works for you. YouTube is a good resource if you don't have money to invest in paying for a course to learn how to do the real estate documents. Definitely start with YouTube, start with Google. As long as you know what you're looking for, you'll be able to find the information. Some notaries that are bilingual and they use the term notarial publico, you are not supposed to do that. It's legal to use that terminology in the state of Maryland and just about every state within the United States, just because they don't, it doesn't translate the same way as how it applies if you're in a Spanish-speaking country. Is there a fee for TIPIC? You can go on the Maryland Insurance website and it has all of the process on there for how you would go about getting your TIPIC license. Yes, it is an investment, and it's several parts to that process that you would have to do in order to get the license completed. A big change, this is really big because it affects if you're doing loan documents and also general notary work. Prior to the law change, you were not allowed to take an expired ID card. The signers, whoever was coming to you, they had to have a valid state or government issued ID card. Now you are allowed to accept expired ID cards if you're doing general notary work. However, if you're doing loan signing work or if you are doing remote online notarizations, they probably will not accept an expired ID card. And this has nothing to do with COVID regulations, even though the state is still under an executive order to extend expired licenses. Most times your transactions will not be able to be completed if it relates to real estate or if it relates to having a remote online notarization transaction completed. I know I have some title people on here, so if anything has changed with that, please shoot a comment and let me know so I can let everybody else know. But most times you are not, the borrower is not going to be allowed to use an expired ID. They will have alternative options that they can use, which usually is a passport or depending on what they need for the Patriot Act. Some lender companies allow other forms of ID to be used, but if you have to go and complete an assignment and they are requiring you or requesting you to get copies of the borrower's ID, they probably do not want an expired ID. If you're doing remote online notarizations, it has to be a valid unexpired ID. Also, most times it has to be a United States ID, or they have to have a social security number. Otherwise, they will not be able to have that transaction completed. So we'll get more into that when we have the 2-part series on getting started as a remote online notary. So if you have any questions about that, you can feel free to drop them in the comments. And I won't get too much into it on this session, but I will add it to the next session. Another big change is the signer can have someone sign on their behalf for them in front of the notary. Now, this does not apply to this does not apply to situations where someone has a power of attorney and the power of attorney is signing on their behalf as a power of attorney or as an attorney in fact. This applies to just someone is authorizing another individual to sign on their behalf. This is most common if you have a situation where the individual is incapacitated or paralyzed or whatever reason. It may be more useful for elderly people who haven't been in a situation where they need to sign their name for a while. So they may have forgotten how to use their functioning capability to hold a pen or hold something to write with to sign their name properly. So they would authorize someone to sign on their behalf in front of the notary. And then once you log your acknowledgement, it is specified in the new handbook. You would write something along the lines of John Doe signed on behalf of Jane Doe in front of notary on October 3rd, 2020. I personally don't agree with that because as a notary, you are supposed to help deter and prevent fraud by verifying the signatures and verifying the identities of the individuals in front of you, and you're supposed to be impartial to the transactions. So a lot of these new laws, some notaries getting started may not feel comfortable with. And I always say, go with your gut. If you are ever in a situation where you don't feel as though you can do something, or you're not comfortable with whatever the signers are asking you to do, it's okay for you to say no. At the end of the day, it's your commission on the line, and you don't want to lose that for anybody or any situation that you're not comfortable with. The new law definitely was created to allow for remote online notarizations to be legalized. As far as getting set up with that, if you registered with the state to do remote online notarizations under COVID regulations, you do have to re-register to do online notarizations after October 1st, because now the law is taking precedence over COVID regulations. So if you were previously using some type of web conferencing service, you are no longer allowed to do that after October 1st. So if you're still doing it, now you know you can't do it anymore. You have to use a platform that has the security to do the audio-visual recording for remote online notarizations. If you go look on the Secretary of State website, it has been updated with the vendors that you can use currently. So you want to make sure that you choose one of those vendors, and then you have to let the state know that you are going to be providing the services, and also let them know which vendor you're going to be using. You are able to use more than one platform. The only issue with the platforms is if you have a digital certificate and you're using more than one platform, you want to be sure that your platform that digital certificate is transferable, because some platforms require you to get a digital certificate through them directly, and that may not be transferable. So if you're interested in using more than one platform, you want to make sure you look to see what benefits they have, cost per transaction. You want to know what type of storage features they provide with the notary. And then also if you're limited to using just that platform, or if your digital certificate is transferable to another platform. Each individual platform does offer their own type of training. So that's also something you want to look out for, to make sure that it gives you sufficient training so that you'll be able to utilize it on your own after the fact, once you make the investment to use that platform. And like I mentioned earlier, we are going to have 2 other sessions for the virtual live Facebook Live sessions on getting started as a remote online notary in the next 2 weeks. So we'll get more into details on specifics with the different platforms so that you'll be aware of what to look for before you make the investment if you haven't already. And if you have made the investment and you don't like how it's turning out, you want to consider changing and going to a new platform, 95% certain you won't be able to get a refund, but now that you know better, you'll be more educated when you make your next decision and what it is that you want to do, and if you want to continue providing those services. For your notary stamp, prior to October 1st, having your commission expiration date on the stamp was optional. Now it is required. So if you are a notary and you currently do not have your commission expiration date on your stamp, you are not in compliance. So you will have to get a new notary stamp that does include your commission expiration date on it. Also, your notary stamp must have the county or the jurisdiction that you received your commission in. So those two things, if you didn't have it prior to October 1st, it was okay. As of now, since the law has changed, you are required to have your commission expiration date, and you are required to have the county or the jurisdiction that you received your notary commission in. So if you don't have that, you probably should stop doing any notarizations until you get it, just so that your stamp doesn't get called into question, or any notarizations that you do don't get rejected because you're using a stamp that's not compliant. Also, for stamps, because you do have to have a notarial wording on all notarial acts that you do now, you are able to put that wording in a stamp as opposed to using a loose certificate that you attach to the document. Most documents already have the wording on there for you. If it does not have the wording on there for you, there is guidance in the new notary handbook on what it should say. So if you're going to order a stamp that has the notarial wording on there so that you can place that on a document that doesn't have it on there, make sure you look at the new handbook, which has been updated on the Secretary of State's website, so that your wording is compliant. If you're going to make your own loose certificates to add to the document, make sure you look at the Secretary of State's new handbook so that you use the wording that is compliant. It's optional if you want to do it. If you have the loose certificates that you want to add, just make sure you specify what the name of the document is that you're attaching it to. If you want to staple it to the document, that's perfectly fine. If you want to, you don't want to take a picture of it because we're not required, or we're not supposed to be keeping any copies of anything that we notarize. So you always want to leave that liability on the signer or the customer that's bringing the document to you to be notarized. They should know what type of notarization they need, but they don't always know what type of notarization is needed. So if you feel comfortable doing it, just have the right wording to add if that's something that you have to do. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, then just, don't do it until you feel comfortable in doing so. Like I mentioned, you do have to keep your journal for 10 years. So whether that's an electronic journal or whether it is a traditional bound journal, some notaries do still have just pieces of paper that they put together as their journal. Now it's specified in the new handbook that you do have to have an electronic or a bound journal, because if your notarization ever gets called into question, the state is able to, request a copy of it, or even if it's not the state, whatever requesting party is able to have a copy of it from you, because that is a public record. As notaries, we are public servants, so that information is supposed to be made available if it's requested. Also, they do have specific requirements for what you should have in your journal, so you can look through the notary handbook and see what those requirements are. They do have many different types of journals that you can buy from many different places. So if you already have a journal and you just started using it, or you just got it and you haven't started using it yet, you don't need to waste the money to go and buy a new journal. Just make sure it has what you need in there for you to use it, and use it as best as you can. And then once you're done, when you get your next journal, make sure it has everything that you need, if it doesn't have it currently. As far as taking thumbprints, not all journals require you to take a thumbprint. I personally like taking thumbprints because it's an extra layer of security. You are able to take a thumbprint in the state of Maryland. They don't have hard copies of the notary handbook. It was emailed as a PDF, so if you want a hard copy of it, your best option is just to print it out and take it to like an Office Depot or Staples and you can have them laminated and binded if you prefer. So you can have a hard copy that way. You can have them printed on cardstock paper that's a little bit harder so that it's not flimsy like a regular sheet of paper. So that's how that would be the only way you get a hard copy of it. You're welcome. If you don't have it currently, you want to make sure that you either go on the Secretary of State website and download it. As of January 1st, all contact information is going, or all communications is going to be sent electronically. Okay. Yeah, so she got hers from Staples. So can you put in the comments for me what you did and how you got it set up from Staples, how they did it for you, please? Thank you. What was I saying? So, sorry. I just lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. All of their communications are going to be sent electronically. So if you haven't already received an email notification with the new Notary handbook, they probably don't have your updated email address. So you want to reach out to the Secretary of State, make sure they have all of your contact information correct so that you get any new communications going forward. Also, like I mentioned, you do have to notify them if you're going to be using the electronic platforms. And then if you have a spouse, you cannot notarize anything for your spouse. You shouldn't be notarizing for friends or family members. Another best practice is if you have a common name, someone has the same first and or last name for you, you shouldn't be notarizing that document for that individual because it could be perceived as a possible conflict of interest because the receiving party that's going to get that document does not know that you're not related to this individual. Now, notaries are allowed to sign as a witness on a document that possibly may also require them to notarize the document as well. So you just want to make sure if that's the case, a best practice is that you're not signing as a witness on the same page where it requires you to put your stamp down for a notarization. So just make sure you're not signing as a witness and notarizing on the same page. Okay, hold on. 2 questions. You can get your notary stamp at Staples. I don't know, are you mixing up your handbook as your journal? Because the notary handbook comes from the Secretary of State, but you can buy a hardback notary journal from an office supply store like Staples. So I just want to make sure you're using the correct words. Is it compulsory to take a thumbprint? It's not compulsory. It's not compulsory that you take a thumbprint. It's optional. Some journals have a space for you to put in a thumbprint, but not all journals do. So if you have the space for the thumbprint, it is okay for you to take a thumbprint as an additional layer of security. But if you don't have it, you don't have to worry about it. Also, if you're recording IDs in the state of Maryland, you are allowed to write the ID number as part of recording your ID information in the journal. However, if you're a DC notary, you are not allowed to write the ID number out for your record keeping. You can only write the expiration date of the ID. If you ask them what their name is, if somebody calls you to do a general notary assignment for them, and we'll get more into this in the mobile notary workshop. So if you're interested in providing mobile notary services, definitely register for that workshop. But I always ask them, if they call you, or if they text you, however you want to get the services done, however you have your name out there for people to do your notarization or get in contact with you, then you would just ask them what their name is. Yeah, so unfortunately, I mean, if you feel comfortable doing it, you can, but I would strongly advise against it because you have a common last name. So you would just ask them. Does anybody else have any other questions? as it relates to just general notary stuff, Maryland stuff, a situation that you might have had that you need a clarification on, any feedback about any of the new laws. It's always based on the preference of what the notary wants, because notary supplies is so many companies that sell them. Some states require you to have specific colors for inks and for your stamps and what can be on the stamp. So as long as you're compliant with what you're supposed to have, then it's just your preference which ones you decide to get. So for example, if you wanted to get a round stamp or if you wanted to get a square stamp, that's perfectly fine. What I will tell you is if you're interested in doing real estate transactions, you want to get a stamp that just has the basic information that you need to have. You don't want to get one that has the borders and all the fancy stuff on it, because sometimes you don't have a lot of room on the paper to put your notary stamp. You have very limited space. So you want to make sure you don't have extra stuff outside of the information that you need on your stamp, so that if you have limited space to put your stamps, it's not taking up anything else, and it's not going over any wording. There is not a legal way to write that you're not related. I don't even think that question would come up. But like I said, just to avoid any conflicts of interest, just don't do it. So if somebody has the same first or last name as you, just don't notarize it for them, so that that's not even a question that has to come up if you're related or not, because they won't try to figure all of that out. They may just get their document denied. And depending on what they need that document for, you don't want to have to put them through that unnecessary headache. The thumbprint question came up. So yeah, you can get supplies from Amazon. You can get supplies from anywhere. So if you're using a stamp for notarial wording, that stamp would be different from your notary stamp. So yes, your notary seal and your notary stamp would be two different things if you decide to go that route. So just make sure if you're using that type of stamp to put the notarial wording on a document that may not have it, you also remember to put your notary stamp as well. If you're in DC and you're a DC notary, you guys are required to use the embosser that leaves the imprint. You want to make sure you have an anchor to put over that embosser, so if that document has to go back anywhere and they need to make copies of it, it can be transferable, because without that anchor, that imprint from your notary stamp is not going to be visible. For Maryland, if you're using a notary stamp, that's black. If you're doing general notary work, most times it's black ink. If you're doing loan signings, depending on where the documents are going, they may require you to have blue ink, or they would allow you to use black ink, but it should specify in the instructions. If it doesn't specify, you can always ask if they have a preference for blue ink or black ink, just to be clear on it. It doesn't matter which thumbprint you use. It doesn't even matter if you use a thumbprint at all. But whatever finger you decide to use, if you want to take the fingerprint, just make sure you're consistent with it. I always use the right thumbprint just because that's what I do, but you can use whatever finger. Just keep it consistent if you decide to use it. And then now, the National Notary Association is selling single-use thumbprint inkers. So if you want to go that route, that's something that you might want to look into investing in, because we are still under COVID restrictions. So that's another way that you can help with safety and security. You're welcome. Okay, so just a few minutes left. Any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns about anything that we talked about for the new laws? Anything that you agree with, don't agree with, might take some getting used to? If you're in situations where, you're welcome, where you have multiple people that's signing, what would you do? Would you feel comfortable asking them how they do certain things? So having a real estate license does not really apply to notarizing documents in a real estate office during settlement, because you may not even be in a real estate office. Most times as a notary, you're going to the borrower's homes. So you would have to have your title producer's license. But if you're doing it as an independent contractor, because a lot of times you have to collect funds, you have to do a bond waiver in the state of Maryland. So you would be actually called a title insurance producer independent contractor. So that license you do have to have as a notary if you're doing real estate closings in the state of Maryland. And you can find that information on how that process works on the Maryland Insurance Administration website. Aside from title work, the only other real option is if you're working with anybody that deals with deeds. A deed needs to be notarized. They have different types of deeds. So you don't need a title producer's license. If you're fortunate enough to work with real estate attorneys, they may need to get deeds notarized if it's just a deed. But if it's a part of a real estate transaction, then yes, more than likely you are going to need to have your title producer's license. The next workshop for October is on October 24th. That's the Intro to Notary Practice workshop. That gives you the fundamentals of what you can do as a notary, getting started as a notary, how you can grow as a notary. And then in November is going to be the mobile notary workshop. So if you're interested in setting up a mobile notary business, that workshop is going to be on National Notary Public Day, which is on November 7th. My workshops are usually on Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's a 3-hour workshop. You get hands-on practice, best practices, and yeah, it goes a little bit more in depth, and you get examples and all of that good stuff. And then also, if you don't need a full workshop, but you just need some questions answered or stuff like that, you can book a one-on-one session. That's for an hour, and then we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Okay, yeah. So most people get started, they get their notary commission, and then they go and do the typic training. A passing grade, you need 70%. If you're taking the typic exam, it's a 2-part exam, and you need 70% on both parts to pass the exam. So signature witnessing is literally, in its most literal sense, you are witnessing someone put their signature on a document. It may not require, so those are the most common documents that don't have any notarial wording. It could just be a written agreement or something between two people. Sometimes official documents want to have a notary witness the acknowledgement taking place. So they don't have any notarial wording on there, but it may just say this has to be completed in front of a notary. So that's where you would use the situation to do the notarization as a witness. And you can find more. Hold on 1 second. Okay, can you send me a side message? I'll find the page number. Constance, can you send me a side message? I'll find the page number in the new notary handbook so you can get a little bit more clarification on that for the signature witnessing, and we could talk about it a little bit more. So other than general notary work, we'll talk about that more in the mobile notary workshop. You can do work as an independent contractor, and those are when you get paid per assignment. It may or may not involve you doing notarizations, but you don't charge per notarization. So it's like if you already set up to get the notifications for loan signing works, it's similar to how that works, but you would get notifications for other assignments and other things that you can do, like being a process server, doing field inspections, serving subpoenas, working as a courier. Those are some other things that you can do. No, the conference is not taking place. I wish it was, but no, because I don't feel comfortable putting people together. I don't want that sitting on my conscience if anybody gets sick. So instead of the conference this year, I'm doing the new workshop, which is going to be the mobile notary workshop on November 7th. So registration is open for that on the website, www.notarytrainingnetwork.org. So definitely looking forward to that. The cost for my workshops, the Intro to Notary Practice workshops, is $95. Right now, since the Mobile Notary Workshop is a new workshop that's launching, that one is $77. And both of those are open for registration. Field inspection contracts. Field inspection is not necessarily being done as a notary. You can do that as an independent contractor. So that's something else that you can do instead of general notary work. And I believe Notary Institution did a live with the founder of SOFI. SOFI is the acronym for Society of Field Inspectors. So if you just Google that, then that's a good place for you to get started and see different companies that you can register with to get work to do as a field inspector. I don't remember the exact website, but if you type in SOFI, SOFI, that's the acronym for Society of Field Inspectors, and that's where you can get started with that. So the test for the typic license is all multiple choice. The first part is on general title insurance, and the second part is on state-specific regulations. So if you are in the Maryland Notary Group or the Baltimore and Typics Notary Group, okay, thank you. They do have the documents on there with the study guide and also the course providers that you can use, because the pre-licensing part is 20 hours to get started as well, to start the process to get your typic license. So you do have to do the pre-licensing course first. Now, some notaries may think that all of these other loan signing programs, certification programs out there are acceptable for the title producer's license. They are not. So if you want to make the investment to do real estate closings as a notary in the state of Maryland, you definitely want to get your title producer's license first. Make that investment first, and then after you get that license, you can make the investment to do any of those other certification programs. But in Maryland, you do have to have your title producer's license in order to do real estate closings as a notary. The cost for my workshops is $95 for the Intro to Notary Practice 3-hour workshop. But since I'm launching the new mobile notary workshop, that one is going to be $77 for right now. That workshop is in November. Yes, you can do loan modifications without your title producer's license because you are just modifying the terms of the loan. You're not doing anything to put in any new you're not doing anything to change anything as it relates to having title, which is why you're able to do it, because it's just modifying their current terms of their loan. It's not giving them a new loan or anything like that. And then the website, if you're interested to get started with field inspections, is sofi.us. So it's SOFI.us. Also, if you are signed up on any of the platforms that contract notaries to do real estate closing, you can do loan modifications. You can also do loan applications. The loan applications requests aren't as popular nowadays because everything is going electronic, but you do still get some requests for loan applications. So you can do that if it comes across as a loan application. No notarizations are required in a loan application. You're welcome. All right, so just a few minutes. If you sent me something, hold on, let me see. Just a few minutes left. So if you have any questions about anything that we talked about tonight that you want some more information or some more clarification on, please shoot me a private message. Constance, I will talk to you separately, so please shoot me a message so that I can remember so we can have that conversation. And if you don't have a copy of your handbook, please do get your handbook. The last thing I want to mention is I do have these calendars. So if you're getting started as a notary and you don't know how to market and advertise your services and you want to know how to do that, if you purchase a calendar, it's for next year. We will be having a mastermind group every month to talk about what the monthly focus is for that month. This is what the calendar looks like on the inside. So you can write down your goals, write down things that you plan to do. If you have any special events or training sessions that you're going to be taking so that you can better yourself as a notary, those are also on the websites. And then that's something that we'll be working on next year. So you'll have your own private intensive monthly mastermind session so we can talk about that. So that can help you grow as a notary as well. You do not need your title producer's license to do field inspections. The two things are completely not related. It's two completely separate things. They have different types of field inspections. Some are for pre-foreclosure, so you're getting work directly from lenders. Some are for cars, so it's like an auto inspection. Some are occupancy verifications for people that abandon properties and try to run off on their mortgage. So there's different types of field inspections that you can do. If you want to get into that, I'll just be honest with you. Some companies want you to do a lot for a little bit of money. Other companies pay good. They might pay you twice a week and they will pay you as a 1099 contractor. So you don't get any taxes taken out of it. So just make sure whatever you're requested to do for whatever company you want to work with is worth the time and investment that you're going to put into it. Also, this is very important, know your demographic areas. You want to know how far you're willing to drive to do an assignment, because even being right here in Baltimore, depending on what side of the city I'm on, it might take 30 minutes. It might take an hour to get from one side of the city to another side of the city at whatever time of day, depending on what time of day it is. So know if you're going to be doing any of these extra types of assignments, when you're willing to travel, when you're willing to do the work, and how far you're willing to go, and make sure it's worth your time. Usually they have all of their fees set up so you can see what you would be getting paid and what you would be required to do before you actually start working for them. So if you don't see that on there, that might be a good indication that it's not a good company to work with. The calendar is $15. My website is www.notarytrainingnetwork.org. You can go on there. They have tools and resources. So if you need background check, if you need supplies, if you need to get errors and omissions insurance, you can do all of that on the website. You can register for the workshop. You can shoot me a message. You can book a one-on-one session. What else? You can purchase the calendar on the website as well. So they're not hard copies right now. What I did was go to Office Depot and I ordered the card stock. I forget which one it's called. I'll send you a message which one I got. Yes. So for notary accounting on the website is something called Notary Gadget. So that can help you keep track of your appointments. It can also help you keep track of the clients that you have as a notary. That's something else we're going to get a little bit more into in the mobile notary workshop, on how to set up your business and having an online presence, having a Google page. If you want to use, well, I like to use Square. I use Square for everything. It links my calendar and my clients. So that's something else that you can use as well. So I don't remember if you said you're getting started or if you already have your commission, but if you want to know more about it, definitely either come to one of the workshops or schedule a one-on-one session, and we can make sure that you're on the right path for everything that you're trying to do. Yes, thank you very much. All right. So, if nobody else has any other questions, or if you have any questions that you don't want to say or you don't want me to read to everybody and you want to send me a private message, I'll be on here for another few minutes or so. Definitely feel free to shoot me your questions. If it's anything that you feel like I didn't answer or I didn't give enough clarification on, please let me know, because I'm here to help you. So if I'm not doing a good job explaining it, then that might be something that somebody else is thinking about. So I'll go back and put another video or another message up if I need to after the fact. So if you are a Maryland notary, I can definitely help you. If you're a Virginia notary or a DC notary, I can try to help you, because I'm branching out into those areas slowly but surely. So if you're not sure where to start, I can definitely point you to the right direction if you're a DC or Maryland notary. Fees for my one-on-one is $55 for 1 hour. You can schedule as many as you want. I don't have, I don't know if you want to call it limited mentoring. Some other notaries say you have to pay, like, you only get 1 hour a month or whatever the case is. No. With me, if you want mentoring or you want a one-on-one session, you just book a session, pay for however many you want. It's no memberships or anything like that. Having a Google business page, I highly recommend it. I have one. If you search my name, you can see how mine is set up. If you want to provide mobile notary services in your local area, it's a great tool to have. All right, so thank you, everybody. I will let you get back to the rest of your evening. I will let you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for joining me, having this conversation today. I look forward to the next 2 sessions. So next Friday, same time, same place, we're going to be talking about getting started as a remote online notary. So if you have any questions specific to what that process entails, definitely join us. You can shoot me your questions beforehand. But we'll go a little bit deeper into how that works. And then the week after that, in part 2 of getting started as a remote online notary, we're going to be talking about platform expectations, how it works for the customer, and also different training requirements and how to find which platform is best for what you want to do. So if you're interested in getting started as a remote online notary, look out for that. I'm excited to talking about it, and it's going to be great. So thank you. Have a good night and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you. You're very welcome. Good night.